This afternoon, the Secretary General and Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, will witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding on a strategic partnership between the UN and the World Economic Forum, which outlines areas of cooperation to deepen engagement between the two institutions and to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda.
Again, I think that the biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people.
Joining us now exclusively is MicroStrategy co-founder and executive chairman, Michael Saylor. Michael, great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Morgan.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about earnings, because in your core software business, software licenses revenue climbed 23%, subscription services revenue up 46%, but really the focus from the market, as per usual, since MicroStrategy is the largest publicly traded holder of Bitcoin, is the fact that your impairment loss for Bitcoin was so much smaller than it has been in recent quarters. Walk me through the results and the flywheel between these two companies within the company.
Sure. We have progressively built up a Bitcoin position up to 140,000 Bitcoin over the past 2.5 years. When Bitcoin traded from 66,000 all the way down to 16,000, we took an impairment loss. In the course of the last 12 weeks, that Bitcoin position has traded up $2 billion in fair market value. So, of course, when it's trading down, there are tax consequences and indefinite intangible write-offs. But when it's trading up, we reverse some of the tax accounting. The indefinite intangible treatment hasn't changed any. But I think the short of it is the software business is very stable, and it's a cash cow. And we use it to pay our interest on our debt and to acquire more Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin itself is our belief that Bitcoin is the ultimate digital scarcity network. And because Bitcoin has been moving up about 50% a year on average over the last 3 years, the real key with Bitcoin is just to be able to hold on to it and stomach the volatility. And we have conditioned our shareholders and our bondholders to understand that we're long-term hodlers. And because everybody is aligned in that interest, we're able to weather that volatility. And we end up doing very, very well as Bitcoin recovers.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is recovering, though. We're still well off the all-time highs. We're up something like 70% since the start of the year. What do you attribute that recovery to?
I think right now there are two twin drivers, right? There's the macroeconomic concern about inflation, and as inflation takes place, people lose confidence in fiat currencies, and that means they start to realize that everything valued on cash flows is a currency derivative, and Bitcoin is not valued on cash flows. It's in a digital scarcity. The failure of the banks, Silvergate Bank, Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, now First Republic Bank, causes people in the Western world to start to lose a little bit of faith in the banking system. And they remember that Bitcoin is a bank in cyberspace run by incorruptible software. So the phrase "be your own bank" has emerged as an investment idea in the United States, but it's really a matter of financial survival elsewhere. And so the combination of that concern about inflation and counterparty risk with banks is driving Bitcoin's adoption. It's also being driven, by the way, by the crypto crackdown. And as people lose faith in crypto exchanges, crypto securities, and cryptocurrencies, there's a natural migration of capital from those crypto ecosystems into Bitcoin, since it's viewed as the risk-off safe haven asset of the crypto space.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, you can't make this stuff up. We have Michael Saylor on CNBC for MicroStrategy. Why is Michael Saylor talking about MicroStrategy when he stepped down as the CEO? Guys, Phong Lee is the CEO. Why is he still on CNBC talking like he's running the company? This is unbelievable. Guys, the chair sits on the board and they're always behind the curtain. They don't come up front and talk about the company. That is the talking head's job. That's the CEO's job. That's how you know, guys, this is all a movie. And then, guys, we have Coinbase launches international exchange. And we know this has nothing to do with the U.S. regulators in the U.S. Guys, we know this is all part of the plan. And we know Andreessen, my guy, is all over Coinbase. Remember, the emerging markets are going to be rising. You're talking about billions of people, and that equals the trillions and trillions of dollars. And we know when a rich man beats a poor man out of something, he says it's just business. And we know crypto is global. And these corporations know they're going to be able to make trillions of dollars over in the emerging markets, while the United States get brought to its knees. The United States dollar is over. And speaking of the United States and United States dollar, we have Janet Yellen giving us a deadline. And we have Heather on CNBC. And while she's telling the truth, all of a sudden we get interference. And Moody says if we go along with the Republican plan, it would be over 800,000 jobs lost in 2024. And guys, we know that's exactly what they want. They want to put the American people out of work, so they bring in the machines. The robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep are going inside the metaverse. And guys, tomorrow we have Jerome Powell in the house. And when we look at all the chaos going on around in the globe, and especially in America, who caused it all? That's right, the Fed. Remember, they cause a problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution. And it works every single time. And guys, don't forget, I'm back on the stock channel. Make sure you go like, subscribe, spread those videos everywhere. On this channel, guys, it's so important to spread the information. And make sure you get in the lab. Because remember, your life is an illusion and TV is your reality. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and certainly it's being handled by regulators a little bit differently, at least right now, still being classified as a commodity, whereas the SEC is starting to look at more aggressively other cryptocurrencies as a security. You mentioned the banks. We do talk about the three banks that failed, including most recently First Republic. But as you mentioned, Silvergate, it doesn't always get brought up, I think in part because it voluntarily liquidated. But it was really the first example of a highly specialized bank, massive uninsured deposit base, mismatch in duration, questions around interest rate risk management, and it arguably set the stage for the SVB run that we saw just a few days later. I want to go back to comments that you made about a month before that happened, the last time you and I spoke. Take a listen.
The institutions that were improperly constructed collapsed. The Alamedas, the FTXs, the Voyagers, the BlockFis of the world. But in fact, Silvergate was a responsible bank. They were able to meet their redemptions. And if you consider the loan terms we have with them, we're nearly 4x over collateralized by 25% loan to value. The irresponsible crypto banks were doing under collateralized loans. So I think they do banking the right way in a responsible fashion, and they're a good citizen for the ecosystem.
Your thoughts now?
Well, I think what happened to Silvergate is unfortunate. I'll note that they weren't seized by the regulators. They're not in receivership. They actually were able to return all their deposits, and they're working out of that situation in a responsible fashion. And so my hat is off to them. I think it's very, very difficult time for any bank that had a large portfolio of long-dated bonds and interest rates surging from almost nothing to 5% in 12 months, I think is largely responsible for the difficulties that the banking sector has undergone.
Yeah, and you did have that retirement of a Silvergate loan at a 22% discount. But with Silvergate out of the picture, with Signature now essentially out of the picture, or at least reclaimed by another bank, what does it mean for the banking landscape, for MicroStrategy and for others in the Bitcoin space? How does this now evolve and change?
I think for those that are acquiring and holding Bitcoin, it doesn't make a big difference. I think the real significance of these on-ramps to crypto being shut down is that as people lose faith in certain stable coins, or they lose faith in crypto exchanges, or if they lose faith in crypto asset securities, like the crypto tokens that the SEC is currently going after, they exit those positions. And since they're not going to withdraw their money back into fiat banks because there are no off-ramps, the natural trade is to trade all those crypto assets for Bitcoin and then put their monetary energy into the Bitcoin network. So I think this is all fairly bullish for Bitcoin. People are trying to figure out what they can trust, and Bitcoin is the most trustworthy crypto asset. It's the most trustworthy crypto network. There is no second best.
Michael Saylor, always great to get your thoughts on this topic. Appreciate the time today. And MicroStrategy up 130%, more than 130% year to date.
And a little bit of movement on debt ceiling negotiations after Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned of a shorter timeline before a potential U.S. default. Kayla Tausche joins us right now with the latest. Kayla, good morning.
Good morning, Becky. Secretary Yellen said yesterday the government could default on its debt as early as June 1st. That's 4 days earlier than her previous estimate, and it's based on data from tax season. In the update, which came in a formal letter to congressional leadership, Secretary Yellen writes, "It is imperative that Congress act as soon as possible to increase or suspend the debt limit in a way that provides longer-term certainty." President Biden has now invited the Big Four leaders to the White House for a visit 1 week from today, on May 9th, to discuss a path to avert a default. A White House official says Mr. Biden will continue to stress separate processes to raise the debt limit with no strings attached and separately negotiate spending levels for the 2024 fiscal year. Senator Schumer will also try to pass quickly a clean debt limit raise to prove Democrats' position after House Republicans passed their own spending cuts last week, but 60 votes there on a clean debt ceiling raise is no sure thing. The House and Senate, meanwhile, are only in session for 2 weeks this month, and President Biden is traveling in Asia in the middle of the month, so that's led 3 separate policy analysts this morning to suggest a short-term extension is now a more likely scenario. The question is what the deadline would then become, and then what, of course, happens after that. Becky?
There is a bill to raise the debt limit. Now, Heather, as you know, that was a big victory for McCarthy. But I've got 2 articles here during the Trump administration. Pelosi knocks the White House fallback plan on the debt limit, putting pressure on late-stage budget talks with Congress, with the administration, for raising the debt ceiling, tied to budget talks. The U.S. government is running out of money. Here's how talks between Pelosi and the Trump administration are going. It happens all the time. Just to arbitrarily take 80 days and say, I'm not going to do anything with the debt limit. There's polls that say the American people want the president to negotiate at this point. And you're hoping, and I know you think that Republicans are going to be blamed, and that's sort of the game plan, but I don't think you can guarantee that, because there's a bill out there now, and if the president doesn't negotiate now, the White House is going to have some of the default on its hands as well, the blame.
Here's the thing. There's a few facts here. First of all, the president has been very clear on his economic priorities. He came out with a complete budget back in March. Speaker McCarthy said that was the first thing that he would do when he became speaker, and it took him quite a while to come up with this vision that is embodied in the legislation that you just referred to that the House passed. But the challenge in front of us is that we have very little time to deal with this debt ceiling increase. We do have more time to deal with the budget talks and appropriation talks, and let's let those things happen in due course. The president has been clear that he is willing to negotiate. He needed Speaker McCarthy to come up with his plan, and it took him quite a while to do that. But the most important thing, I'm an economist who works here at the White House. We get up every day making sure that this economy is delivering for working people all across the country. And the 2 outcomes that appear to be the ones that will lead to the most new unemployment and job losses would be to go past this debt ceiling limit. And recent analysis from Moody's Analytics found that if we were to put in place the Republican proposal, that could lead to a loss of 800,000 jobs in 2024. And so this also could have negative economic implications, and that is something that the president is very concerned about. We do not want to see a rise in
rolling
unemployment.
Over right now? Is that why the tax receipts are below expectations?
There's a variety of, I would refer you to the Treasury Department for exactly why the tax receipts came in the way that they did, but there are a variety of issues.
Yeah, from an economic perspective, do you think the economy is turning over?
Well, certainly we get a lot of economic data. You know, you all follow it each and every day, and what we've continued to see is robust employment numbers. And we continue to see that as at the last jobs numbers, of course, we'll get new numbers this Friday. The economy has been continuing to add jobs. We saw continued strength in consumer spending when we got GDP last week. So there are signs of slowing. We are trying to have an economy that's cooling down enough to reduce inflation, but there are also a lot of signs of ongoing strength in the U.S. economy.
Heather Boucher. Heather, thank you.
Check out shares of J.P. Morgan. It's been a little more than 24 hours since we learned that the mega bank would be taking over First Republic after that institution was seized by the FDIC. Steve Leisman joins us now with a look at the Fed and whether the Fed board, including its chair and its vice chair, should share some of the blame for the recent bank failures. What do you think?
Something not discussed very much. The Federal Reserve's postmortem, Andrew, on the failure of Silicon Valley Bank took a critical look at the action of its own supervisors. Of course, it blamed the bank executives as well, but it stopped short of one potentially critical assessment, the actions of the Fed board of governors, its chair and its vice chair of supervision. A February 14th staff presentation to the Fed's board said SVB, quote, has significant interest rate risk, and banks with large unrealized losses face significant safety and soundness risk. We don't know from the report how the Fed board responded. The report says staff was going to conduct a, quote, horizontal review of interest rate risk at banks, but SVB failed 2 weeks later before that review could take place. The review said a special report in June 2022 warned of, quote, risks associated with unrealized losses on investment securities. That report came in June 2022 while the Fed was just beginning a series of historically aggressive 75 basis point rate hikes that would raise the funds rate by nearly 5 percentage points in a year. And the question is whether the Fed board, from a policy perspective, did it pay enough attention to the fallout from rate hikes designed to battle inflation? Did Fed leadership tell supervisors, hey, sharpen your pencils, increase your scrutiny of interest rate risk? Diane Swank, chief economist at KPMG, writing in response to our CNBC Fed survey, the Fed has attempted to divorce its battle against inflation from efforts to stabilize financial markets. Breaking up is hard to do. Rapid rate hikes are destabilizing. The result, inflation has come down, unemployment's low, inflation looks set to fall further, but the U.S. has two of the biggest bank failures in its history, and the Fed had to create a special fund to provide banks with liquidity. At best, the jury's still out on this idea of separating monetary policy and supervision. At worst, maybe additional banks in danger, and the lesson is that the Fed should have paid more attention to banks when making monetary policy. Andrew?
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go, but clearly we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 Kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.